Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, where we elevate marketing leaders inside and out. I'm your host, Veronica Rami, master marketer, executive leader, and mentor to ambitious marketing leaders wanting to advance their careers. Each episode is filled with genuine, unscripted conversations with some of the world's top marketing experts, accomplished leaders, and industry trailblazers representing brands, both large and small. Our goal with this podcast and everything we do is to help you master your role, nurture your team, prioritize your well-being, and evolve into an industry-leading rainmaker. This is the Rainmaker Podcast. In this podcast, I'm thrilled to introduce to you a marketing leader with over 2 decades of experience in the world of franchise marketing. Our esteemed guest, Mary Mills, is currently the Vice President of Marketing for one of the most successful franchise companies in the country, College Hunks Hauling Junk and Moving. With over 200 franchise locations, Mary and I discuss the unique challenges of franchise marketing, her secret weapon to managing over 200 different business owners and their personalities, plus her own executive team's expectations, how she personally prioritizes serving quote-unquote different masters, and a career-defining conversation that changed everything for her future. So let's dive right in and make it rain with Mary Mills. Mary, welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm really excited to have you. I don't know if you even know this. So I was a vendor. I was a social media, Facebook ads vendor for College Hunks Hauling Junk. That's how I know Omar.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Oh no. I know your world very well. And I immediately text Omar and I'm like, can I please talk to your marketing leader? Please, please, please. And he immediately sacrificed you. He's like, yes.
Yes. I love being sacrificed in this case.
Yeah, in these brilliant cases where we get to showcase your brilliance, right? And so I'm really excited to have you on the podcast because you are, all in franchise marketing expert without a shadow of a doubt. If anybody knows anything about the franchise world, you look at your resume and the pedigree and you're like, damn, she knows her stuff when it comes to this very unique industry in which you have to market because there's more than one master you're serving. So do you mind if we just dive right in and
Well, you really cut right to the core with that, Veronica. That's true.
Yeah. Well, it is true. So for anybody that doesn't know anything about the dynamic of franchise marketing, how would you describe it to a brand new marketer?
Franchise marketing is when a business owner is buying a system. So in our case, they're buying the moving and junk hauling system, and they're buying our name and our brand recognition and our way of doing things, our playbook, if you will. So it takes some risk out for the business owner. They don't have to go out and start a business on their own and figure everything out. Everything's already been figured out for that business owner, and they're buying the system and the name. And it shortens their growth curve. They can come in and benefit from what's already been proven and have data and have resources and have everything they need to get a jump start and get that business up and running quickly.
Yeah, it's really nice. So if you have the aspiration to be an entrepreneur, but it's super daunting and it's scary, you can literally buy a business in a box. It's really nice because there's been a lot of pavement that has already been carved out for you when you're buying into a franchise model. Now, as a marketer though, you have several, it's funny because in traditional marketing, you do customer profiling, right? So avatars and personas and, ideal customer this. In the franchise marketing world, it's very interesting to me because you're marketing the brand holistically in the global stage, right? Like Chipotle. Everybody knows Chipotle, almost like a consumer version, right? So College Hunks Hauling Junk and Moving is on the news and does a ton of amazing stuff in their community, local and global. They're everywhere. But then you also have lots of people that you have to appease for their individual marketing, which is the franchisee. So talk about that.
I think that's the biggest challenge for a marketer in franchising. As you say, if you work for a company, there's probably a CEO, there's your direct boss, there's a handful of people who you are having to collaborate with and make sure that they see your success and those kind of things. In franchising, you have hundreds of business owners who are also counting on you.
Yeah.
So, and they're really counting on you.
Yeah.
These are people who have often put their life savings into this business model, and they did it with the expectation that you're going to ensure their success. So it's not something you can take lightly. So in my case, I have 2 founders who founded the company. So I need to make sure they're happy. I have the CEO of the company. He has to be happy. But I have, over 200 franchise partners, and they're in different Well, while it's the same model, each community can be a little bit different,
100%.
right? Like one franchisee can be in an area where he has a lot of local junk calling
Mhm.
competitors. But another one is in a market where that's not the problem. He has a lot of moving competitors or
Mhm.
whatever it might be.
Mhm.
There are just differences. So it's the same model and we're able to scale it and all of that, but there are also individual needs. And also each franchisee comes from a different
Yeah.
background. So my job is to meet them where they are.
Yeah.
I'm going to have some who quite honestly could challenge anything I know about marketing. They've
Oh.
maybe owned their own marketing company or they were the CMO at some massive company, like they know marketing. I have others who, I have to explain the difference between
Mm.
marketing and advertising. You know what I mean? So there are so many different people with so many different expectations and different levels of knowledge when they come into it, that the challenge is being able to serve all of them successfully and make sure all of them are going to be successful.
Well, and stay, sane as a person. Let's get real. Like you have 200 plus franchisees in varying degrees of marketing knowledge and
Mhm.
marketing appreciation. And then you also have your internal team and executive board,
Mhm.
And so like you are literally serving multiple masters and they
Right.
don't always agree and you're the in between. Oh man. First of all, you haven't left the space. Like you're still in it. How, like, not to be like so blunt, but like,
Yeah.
how have you done it? How have you remained as charming and lovely and
Yeah.
also resilient more than anything in the face of these really unique dynamics?
I think you have to be the kind for I think it's not for everyone,
Yeah.
but I think it happens to fit my personality and my personal style.
Mhm.
I would get bored, I
Mm.
think, if I just worked for a regular company and marketed the same product for years and years and didn't have a lot of moving targets to be keeping track of. I kind of find it to be the challenge and the fun of the job. While we think of the word challenge as being a negative word, I kind of thrive on
Yep.
challenge.
Yeah, we're addicted to the rush. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're addicted. That's
Yeah.
a really good way of putting
Oh yeah.
it. Like, if every day came in and was exactly like the day before, I don't think I would have been in this industry for so long.
Yeah.
But my day starts and I have a certain meeting cadence on the calendar, and then an hour into it, that's out because there's some fire to put
Always.
out somewhere.
Always.
And that's what makes it interesting to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it literally is. And I think this is what's interesting about marketers as a whole, as a species, because we are very unique, right? You go into a
mhm,
room full of like these coders and you're like, okay, that's a whole different kind of energy and vibe. You go into the
right.
room with a whole bunch of marketers. We like the pain. We like it. We like adversity. We like the pressure of the arena. We like to compete. We
Yeah,
like, and it's interesting because I find amongst marketers, it's not so much competing against their peers, it's competing
mm,
amongst themselves and like
right.
their own personal records or their own personal best, which is really fascinating to me as a group, which is why I love putting marketers in the same room because we're so generous with each other, but we're
Right.
still sharks. We're still super competitive just with ourselves a lot of the time.
Right.
So here's my question, and I don't know if there's like a compass to this or a formula that you've been able to figure out after so many years in a franchise space, but like, how do you allocate your budget? How do you allocate your time, your distribution, your
Mm,
resources? Because, like I said, like the only way that you'll get more franchisees is if the brand looks sexy. Because, like, that's what you're doing. You're
yeah,
selling future franchisees on buying this franchise as opposed to any other franchise because they're going to buy a business, but why buy
right.
college hunks hauling junk and not something else? So you got to do a
Right.
really good job at making this like the gift wrapping, paper
Yes.
on this particular opportunity has to be spectacular. And so like there's the marketing and branding effort for it, and then you're also helping them. So how in a day, in a week, do you just split yourself in 200 pieces? How do you do it? How do you manage a team to help you do it? Like I want to get into your brain. I want to sit with you for a week. Tell me.
And I would love that, by the
Right.
way. I think the two parts of that are actually the same thing. I
Okay.
think the packaging and marketing of the brand is purely based on the success of the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So if the marketing specifically wasn't successful,
Mm-hmm.
our franchisees wouldn't be successful and we wouldn't be able to sell more
Right.
locations. at the end of the day, when people are buying a business, they're buying a business for it to succeed and so they can make money,
Right.
right? Nobody's doing it just for the fun of
Yeah.
it, unless they're really, have other issues. But people are doing it because they want financial security. They
Yes.
want a legacy to leave to their
Yes.
children.
Yeah.
They have greater plans for their lives
Yeah.
than what they've been able to accomplish so far. So if I can help to make each location successful, that is building the brand and helping us to sell more
Mhm,
locations,
mhm.
if that makes sense.
Oh, no, it makes complete sense. It's the hand that feeds the like, what's that phrase where like,
One hand washes the other.
yes, everyone's scratching everyone's back into this kind of cycle of reciprocity.
Yeah.
Hey, Rainmakers, it's Veronica, and we'll get back to today's episode. But before that, I have an exciting invitation for all of you aspiring, ambitious marketing leaders. If you are serious about advancing your career in marketing and you're looking for an expert to give you some personal insights, guidance, tips, then I'm going to invite you to schedule a free Pathway to Promotion call with me. This is a special one-on-one call with just you and me to discuss your current roadblocks in your career, your long-term aspirations and ambition, and the next best step for you and your personal promotion. Head to pathwaycall.com or click the link in my show notes to schedule your free Pathway to Promotion call. Now back to today's episode. Okay, here's another, and I think I know the answer from when I used to work with you, so I don't know if it's changed. And now I'm like
Okay.
personally interested or curious, I guess I should say. But like, you have 200 plus locations, you have a variety of business owner personalities, to say the least.
Yeah.
How have you made them champions for you as
Mhm.
the leader of this marketing lane? How have you made them champions for you, advocates for you? So like, they're behind your vision, and then they can like convince the rest of their peers that like this choice to buy this vendor or this service or this initiative is the right one for the whole, because 200 people to convince individually at one given time is just too much. So how have
Right.
you done it strategically?
That is truly a great question. I think this is where my value is in the brand. I often say, I'm not the smartest person in the room all the time, but I am a person who is curious, who asks the right questions, who isn't afraid to ask questions. My original career was as a broadcast journalist. So, as a reporter at my foundation, I ask questions and I communicate. So, if you then take those two skills and you move them forward to being a marketing leader or different locations and different personalities, I think those two skills continue to serve me really well.
100%.
When I think about greatest accomplishments, and I think that was something you had told me to think about, and it really answers this question that you've just asked me now. When I arrived, one of the pain points for the brand was that franchisee feedback
Yes.
on marketing tactics wasn't so great.
Yes.
And that was one of my first challenges, was to turn that number around. And so how did I do that? I leaned on what's instinctive to me,
Yeah.
which is start communicating,
Yep. Yep.
So I got on the phone and started talking to franchisees, and I started sending out a newsletter and doing webinars and just talking to them, engaging with them. And what I find is you develop relationships, which isn't that just fundamental to
Mm-hmm.
success in everything in
Mm-hmm.
life? And when you have those relationships, you can leverage them for just what you're talking about. So, I don't have to necessarily convince 200 and some people that a new program is the greatest program. I have to convince a handful of influential
Yes, exactly
franchisees,
right.
right? And then they become your advocates,
Mm-hmm.
and they become, your fan, and they'll help you, and they'll also protect you.
Yes.
If they're seeing something that's not going to work,
Yep.
they'll tell you.
Yep.
They'll text me or call me and say, here's what I'm hearing,
Yep.
and then that helps me to know how to improve things and how to pivot
Yep.
and how to kind of remarket things within my system to make them better and make them work better.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And I don't, do you guys still call it what? The council, advisory council?
Franchise
The
advisory
franchise
council.
advisory
Yes.
council. Yeah.
Yes.
Which I thought was it's almost like a little mini boardroom of some of the most successful, influential Z's, right? Together.
Mhm.
And yeah. And then they kind of represent the feedback of the whole, or like you said, they're the bridge between what's happening in the trenches and then what's happening in home
Exactly.
office. And like, yes. Well, and the
Yes.
reason that I wanted to ask this
You
question,
remember us well.
I love this brand.
Yes.
I'm
I am right
actually
there with you.
a huge fan of the brand. I have such positive memories working with you guys, so like I'm a massive fan. But the reason I want to ask you this question is because some of the things that our marketers that listen to the podcast or that work with us in our programs that they struggle to do is they struggle to articulate their personal value, and they
Mhm.
struggle to be seen as influential and to be respected. A lot of marketers are really comfortable in individual contribution. Like they're really comfortable getting really proficient at doing things and
Mhm.
specializing and like really just honing in and really sharpening a particular, knife. But then when
Right.
you put them in a leadership role, those things that you gained in journalism, the communication and the question asking and like the compassionate curiosity and seeking to understand before, you know what I mean? Like those
Right.
aren't necessarily inherent things that they think to do, but sometimes they're just thrown in a position of leadership. So like if
Right.
you could go back to like your baby marketer days when you went from
Yes.
individual contribution to like those first, days, months, years of leadership, what were some of the things that you grappled with that you had to overcome or to
Mm.
like own that you this was a weakness I needed to work on?
That's also a good
I
question.
do my job.
I think in the beginning, I had a mindset of, I'm just going to sit back and quietly listen and soak in this
Mm,
information and process it, and
smart.
then I'll go problem solve.
Mhm.
But I kind of quickly realized that if you don't speak up in a certain
Yeah,
way, people don't know your value.
100%.
I've heard you talk to other people on your podcast
Mhm,
who tell a story that is very relatable to
mhm.
me. In one of my first leadership positions, I was at a different franchise company and was invited to this once a year, the big strategy
Yep.
summit with, all the big people sitting around a big table. And I was doing this thing where I was just listening and taking it all in. And during a break, a wonderful mentor came up to me and pulled me aside and said, Mary, you were invited to this meeting because we wanted to hear what you have to say, and we value you, and what you have to say is important. And if you don't speak up, you won't get invited again.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, imagine that moment. I'm so grateful to him that he's got my back and he's telling me this, so scared,
Yeah.
like, oh no, I'm not going to get invited
Yeah. Oh,
again.
no. Yeah.
And then I really had to tap into what I said before, ask questions even.
Mhm,
Even if I didn't know as much
mhm,
as these people who had been with that brand for 10 or 20 years or
mhm.
whatever, I couldn't necessarily contribute on top of what they knew, but I could ask a question that would further the conversation.
Yeah.
Or I could say, maybe I don't get this because I'm newer,
Mhm,
but couldn't we try this?
mm,
And then I figured out they would go, oh,
mhm, mhm,
yeah, that's a
mhm,
good idea.
mm.
And then once you get out of that comfort zone and you do it a few times, you get more and more comfortable with it.
I'm so grateful for assigned or unassigned mentors. Like for
Right?
that person to pull you aside to say an uncomfortable thing,
Mhm.
right? To tell you, hey, like either you need to step up or you're going to step out.
Right.
What a moment. And then, but here's the thing that showcases you and like you being valiant because a lot of people would go, I'm out. See themselves out the door. Okay. Like, because imposter syndrome is very real. And so for
Right.
somebody to come up to you and say the thing that you internally are already fearful of, like, I'm not worthy to
Right.
be in this room. How did I get in here? Maybe I shouldn't be here. When are they going to figure out I'm a fraud? Oh my God. Like, those are some of
Right.
those really nasty kind of mind gremlins that happen for so many people at the highest levels. And so that person vocalized it to
Right.
so almost validated that negative Pammy voice in your mind, right?
Right.
And then you
Absolutely.
said, "No, thank you. I'm going to step up," which is really
Right.
a testament to you and your character and that fire, the fire in the belly to go, "Okay, then I'm going to do something about that." And then obviously look at your career because of this really, I mean, talk about pivotal moment. Oh, I love that you
Yeah.
share that.
Yeah, to me, it was like one of those just little defining moments that
100%.
makes up a career and a life. And that particular gentleman went on to hold me accountable on a variety of different
Yeah.
things. And every time he did it from like this place of kindness
Mhm.
and generosity,
Mhm.
but was also really clear. You know what I mean? Like he told me exactly what I needed to hear and how to solve the issue.
Yeah.
And then it was just up to me to be able to execute
Yeah.
on it and do it,
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
what Brene Brown says. She's, clear as kind, right? So like
Clear as kind, Brene
don't
Brown,
be
yes.
passive aggressive. Just say the thing, you
Absolutely,
know?
yeah, it's so true, and I think that's hard for
Oh
people,
yeah.
Yeah.
They have books about it, how to have crucial
Exactly.
conversations. Like, it's so uncomfortable. Like, no, no,
It's so uncomfortable.
no, no.
But at the end of the day, and I try really hard. I work with a lot of younger people.
Yeah.
Now I try to be him what he was to
Sure.
me,
Yeah.
you know?
100%. Pay it forward.
Yeah, like simple things like what an employee should put, what is appropriate to put on their social media account if they're friends with their boss. Or, just like those little things that are pseudo what a mom would tell
Yeah.
you, pseudo
Yeah.
what a boss would
Yep.
tell you, a mentor would tell
Yep.
you. Like, I just try to keep those things real because somebody did that for me.
Yep.
What if he wouldn't have said that to me that day?
Yeah. No, I know.
That
That's what I'm
one day,
saying.
like how different could things have
Oh,
been,
100%. Your path would have
Yeah,
been radically different. I don't even know. I mean, we maybe be on
right,
a podcast for a different reason, or if at all, like radically different if had that not
right,
happened to you, or that I also had these really distinct moments where like a messenger came in moment. Like it was like, whoa,
right.
and I heard it
Yeah.
and then I acted accordingly. And like, here I am because of these really definitive moments in my career and my personal life, my professional life for sure. And I'm so
Mhm.
grateful. But to your point, I feel this ethical responsibility to pay it
Mhm.
forward. And so like
Mhm.
here I am, like I'm a leader
I was
making other
just gonna say,
leaders.
you're clearly doing that.
100% because
Right,
too few are. I think there's so many people that are in survival mode that they don't have the capacity to turn around and then help the next person up. And
right.
it's my mission now. Okay. I've asked you
Okay.
some really good questions, some hard
You have, you're
questions.
on fire.
Thank you. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. I'm not even on caffeine, guys. I want to flip the script and I'm going to
Okay.
give you the mic to ask me anything that you'd like that I'm not prepared for. So go for it.
I'm very curious about the podcast and how
Mhm.
you went from social media marketing to podcasting. And I know podcasting is the thing and so many
Yeah.
people are doing it, but
Yeah.
you seem to have a very particular voice with
Sure.
yours. You reference fighting in the arena a lot,
Hmm.
which, by the way, back when I was working in an office, I had that framed
Did
and
you?
in my office. I really did.
Yeah.
So I feel very relatable
Yeah.
to, I'm very much able to relate to what
Yeah.
you're doing. But, so I'm curious about what got you
Yeah.
there and what your end goal
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
Like, how are you using it and using this platform to get to where you want to be?
So I'm probably going to answer this in a way that you're not expecting.
Okay.
I did not start a podcast for mass distribution.
Hmm.
I currently at this moment do not have like on my wish list or my aspiration board, my vision board
Right.
to like get picked up by HubSpot or get picked up by any particular like podcasting network or be a Joe Rogan or like it has never been on the peripheral for me. I
Hmm.
started a podcast because a podcast is my favorite form of marketing. So kind of what you were talking about earlier, and I was going to say it, but I'll say it now. Like there's social media marketing, right? So there's social
Right.
marketing. There is search marketing, like SEO nerdy, blogging, like the right. So there's search marketing, there's paid marketing, which is ads and all the things, and then there's relationship marketing. And
Mm.
of the four disciplines, my number one favorite thing in the entire world is relationship marketing. And
Yeah.
it's not the quantity of relationships, it's the quality of relationships. And so I started a podcast to literally make friends, to build connection with people that
Yeah.
otherwise I don't, unless we just happen to find each other in at the same event. Let's say we were both
Right.
going to Inbound in Boston together and I saw you, we connected, but like realistically that's very hard to do. And also I have two little boys at home, so I don't want to like spend more time on the road than being in my house, right?
Right.
But a podcast is a really safe offer. Hey Mary, would you mind
Yeah.
being on the podcast with me? And then I literally just spent like the last 25 minutes with you, just in all of you. And now my sincerest hope is that we have this rapport moving forward and that we get to like lean on each other, and at any moment you need something, you call me, I can, like, you know what I mean? Like that's why I
Yeah.
did the podcast, not for the number of downloads, but for the number of quality relationships that I want in my life.
And that is really meaningful, right? That cuts to the core.
Yeah.
It really does. And what you said, I think, is what everybody wants
Yeah.
now. We can talk about, business and strategy and those things all day long. A challenge for me is keeping up with all the technology
Oh
and
yeah.
the AI changes. And I think about that and I think like, oh, every Friday I set aside time to watch those kind of things and to advance and to learn. And then I think at the end of the day, is that what's going to make me successful in my role?
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably not,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's good. I need to do those
Mm-hmm.
things without a doubt. But at the end of the day, it's
100.
relationships, it's leveraging
Yeah.
opportunities. It's talking to people. It's
Yeah.
just, it's so simple. Like
Yeah.
the tactics change, how a consumer may search for us is going to change in the future, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
But it's still just
It's
communication. It's
still
still just making
people.
sure they find
Yes.
what they're looking for
Yes.
and that we're a match for what
Yeah.
they're looking for.
Yeah.
It's like the more things change, the
Yeah.
more they stay the same.
Well, and that's what it is, right? Like if you
Yeah,
really think about the role of marketing, it's really marketing's job is to facilitate a relationship between a brand and a business and its consumers. Like that's the
exactly.
job. I court
Yeah,
you, I flirt with you, I ask you if you
yeah.
want to go on to dinner by downloading this lead magnet. Like I
Yes.
like it's just a building an intentional relationship with a stranger. And how you do that changes through time, right? Like you said. So, like, whether it's social media is now the way that I'm going to ask you out on a date, or it's going to be search or YouTube or this or like, there's so many ways and they've all changed.
Mhm.
Like, my parents, gosh, they had an air conditioning company for 30 plus years. And for 17 of those 30 years, their only form of marketing was the yellow pages. And they spent $1,500 a month and they put
Yeah,
an ad in the yellow pages.
yeah,
That was how they made a relationship for the first time with a stranger.
right.
Those things change, obviously, right?
Right.
Like we see
And
them
they were
change.
probably horrified when the Yellow Pages first went away and thought it was going to be the end of their
Oh,
business,
100%.
and then figured out there's a new Yellow
Yeah.
Pages. It's just not
Yeah.
printed.
And then their daughter went to marketing school and they're like, we figured it
Yes.
out. And then I took them to the modern
Veronica,
time.
I can remember standing in a room in front of franchisees and telling them to pivot and stop spending so much money on those very expensive Yellow Page
Yeah.
ads and instead spend it over here on
Hmm.
this digital advertising.
Yeah.
And I can remember franchisees standing up and saying, "You're trying to put me out of
Oh,
business.
gosh.
Like, you're going to kill my business. Like, that's how I get my customers. Don't tell me I can't do that."
Yeah.
But this gets back to what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Because of the relationships
Yeah.
and the trust that gets built, and eventually enough of them came to believe it and came to
Hmm.
see
Hmm.
that there are other ways
Hmm.
to get to those customers. And
Yeah, and it doesn't like that's the thing. There's so many different marketing knives, right? Like we're like Swiss Army
yeah,
knives. There's lots of things that I can do to do the
right,
magic, but ultimately somebody has to trust me enough to hold the knife in the first place. And so, like your franchisees, if they didn't have enough relationship equity with you and enough respect and admiration for your role, then they were going to potentially be left in the dust because they weren't even receptive to what you were saying was going to be something they should consider, right? Like all of that
right.
matters. And so yes, for me, I am a relationship marketer through and through, and this
Um,
podcast has been one of the greatest gifts because of it.
And I bet you have met a lot of great
Yeah.
people. And speaking on behalf of the people who you've met doing your podcast, we have got this opportunity to
Yeah.
meet you and to be able to hear your perspective on things, which is
Oh,
not nothing.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're so, oh man. Okay. We're just going to continue gushing offline. So I just want to say, Mary, thank you so very much for being on today's Rainmaker podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on today's Rainmaker podcast. Marketers help other marketers. So if there's a marketer in your life who could really use a new perspective in a way that helps them advance their career, please pass this episode forward, share, leave us a review. Everything helps as we embark on helping as many marketers elevate themselves inside and out. You can always visit veronicarami.com for today's show notes, additional links to some free resources and tools for you to help you advance your career. You can always connect with us on social media at ViaRami if you want more behind the scenes or a way for us to connect personally. Until next time, my friends, make it rain.